All right, thanks so much, guys, for coming. I really appreciate it. And I'd like to begin this talk with getting you guys just to close your eyes, and I'm going to get you to picture yourself in a different period of time. So imagine you are in a luscious jungle where the temperature is warm. You are surrounded by many bird song, other animals around. There's maybe a waterfall in the background, a stream, and you're exactly as nature intended you to be. You have no reliance on any sort of modern convenience, comfort, whether it's a blanket, a tent, an area for you to prepare your food. Nature has done all of that for you. And you look around, you have very keen sight, very keen smell. There's perhaps other people around there with you also. And you notice that there's the smell of plants, there's the smell of fruits on the trees, you can smell the water, there maybe there's bees nearby, you can smell the sweet honey coming from the hive. You have this keen awareness of nature all around you and this sense of nature being there to support you the way nature supports every other creature on this planet. And as you live in this little world that you're imagining here, I'd like to remind you all and myself of perhaps we have disconnected ourselves from this connection with nature, of that nature has things in place already for us that perhaps maybe we have turned away from and that we can turn back to. So you look around in this luscious jungle, perhaps you're at a clearing, there's the waterfall, there's the ocean, there's a lake there. You don't need clothes, you don't have clothes because you've been created perfectly to survive in the climate that is best suited for you, just like every other creature. So perhaps you see a fruit on the tree or some herbs and you go and pick them. Maybe you're gathering them for a friend, for yourself, for later on, knowing with this innate awareness that nature has created this for you, and seeing that there are other creatures that aren't your species, that are other species that are eating exactly what nature created for them also. And just bask in this wondrous world of support from nature, the warmth of the sun coming down on your skin, feeling the light of the day, feeling as the breeze changes temperature. All of these things are just different aspects of awareness that many of us have dulled unintentionally because of our modern living. And I'll just leave you guys in this world for a little moment, a few more moments, and then I'll get you to open your eyes back up and I'll commence the talk. As we come out of this warm world where we have this connection, we see the other creatures, we see our friends exactly as nature created us. I would like you to have this idea in the back of your mind throughout my talk as we commence to observe nature. And you'll notice I'll use a lot of Socratic method is what it's called, is where it's more question rather than statement, and getting us as aware beings to ask ourselves questions opposed to allowing perhaps something that someone's written to be the information for us, and rather to see what other animals do and see like how do they have that knowing, how do they have that awareness. So you can come out of this world when you feel it's needed for you. And I'll just like to start the talk with this. It's actually the first two lines of the verse we say every breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And this is the English translation of the first part. This material body is a lump of ignorance, and the senses are a network of paths to death. Somehow we have fallen into the ocean of material sense enjoyment, and of all the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and uncontrollable. That is a snippet from a verse we say here, and it's a very powerful verse because I think it rings so true with what I'm sharing here in this talk. And really that comes down to the food that we eat. And just a little background of me, I am a student of a man called Dr. Robert Morse, who has been using herbs and raw foods and fruits for many years, over 50 years now. helping people with critical situations where other help couldn't be given. And often they're knocking on death's door, so to speak, and many, many times these people get pulled out of these really terrible situations. Sometimes they're unreachable if they really are too far gone, but it's remarkable what the body can do when given the opportunity and a different environment. And that's what I want to show you today, of this different environment that we can put ourselves under, an environment that I think every animal automatically lives under, and perhaps humans are the ones that no longer live in this state anymore. And to try and show us what we can do to bring ourselves back to that state, to live in more harmony with nature. And just a little bit about me, I had a multitude of health issues growing up. Like, my mum's here today, and she would know that, you know, my appendix ruptured when I was 15 months old, something I should have died from. Growing up, I had a lot of teeth issues, and my teeth were eroding from the inside out. No dentist could tell me why my teeth were internally eroding. And until I started applying these principles, that erosion stopped, and then that has now reversed. So I'm reversing cavities in my mouth. And some dentists are aware of this. They're aware that the body can reverse, but they have said this is very uncommon. We don't see it very often. So I applied this, and I'm now working as a practitioner of Dr. Morse, and I'm continuing to study at his school to help as many people as I can, most of which are in desperate need of help. So this sort of leads on from this world that I got you guys to sort of pull yourselves into, and this is beginning the talk with asking yourselves these questions. And this is how Dr. Morse actually begins his schooling, and it's to get us to ask and observe, because he will say that the best science, or true science, is observed science. So it's where we observe. We don't have a preconceived summary of what we want to be the outcome, depending on what it is we're studying, but rather to let nature do the talking, because the power in nature is quite remarkable. We see what happens in nature, and what can almost seem like miracles happen at times. But what I'm going to show you here is these aren't miracles. This is actually a game of chemistry, which is a game of physics, which is a game of energy. There was a guy here earlier who left, Louis. He does a thing called biofield tuning, which is about bringing the harmony of the energetics of the human body back into alignment with the physical body. And essentially, that's what's at play with chemistry and physics at the smallest level. So yeah, the questions are, which species are we? You know, we hear a lot of like, one diet doesn't fit all. There's different things for different people. But if we put ourselves in a position of observation and go, which species are we? Anthropology tells us that we are closest to a primate species. There's a small difference, and they've shown it's neurological. It's crazy what the small neurological difference is, and that's in the brain. When it comes to, like, a monkey can't build crazy buildings and do all these amazing things that modern humans can do. And yet our physiology is almost identical. And the main premise here, which I'll get into soon, which is under Dr. Morse's teachings, why we see the erosion of the individual, and also why we can see the rebuilding of the individual, and that's to do with cooking the food. And a little thing with raw food specifically is every other creature on this planet, there's up to even 1 trillion I've seen, but I wanted to keep it just mammals because it is 8.7 million at the moment, apparently. That's sort of a fluctuating number, but thereabouts. And at the molecular level, every single species on this planet, whether it's mammal or not, consumes their food raw. There is no processing involved. There's no cooking where heat extracts water, where enzymes are destroyed, the energy is lowered. These sort of things don't exist in every other aspect of the natural world, other than with humans. So I think it's an important thing to keep in mind as we proceed. Following this title here, I'll actually read a quote from Dr. Morse, and he explains the ideas of disease in a very, very concise, beautiful way. But something that we have that we don't see that natural animals have is we constantly have these different diseases, and we have names for different diseases. But what I'm going to try and show you here today is, let's not let a disease term scare us. You know, I spend a lot of time with clients getting them out of fear. That's one of the first things I need to do, because if they think they have no chance of getting out of the situation they're in, and they are doomed, and they've got a label, and they think, okay, this is what I've got, I try to show them through understanding chemistry and understanding how their body got into the state that they can reverse that with the opposite side of chemistry. And essentially, it leads into the polars we have in the physical world, which I'll get into a little bit more soon, and that's duality. We have physical creation as dualistic. And so any of these things that you may be experiencing, I'll get into as to understanding how they occur under Dr. Morse's teachings and how we can turn that around, and in quite a short space of time, comparatively speaking, which is pretty remarkable. And I'll give you some examples of some pretty crazy cases that Dr. Morse's have, and then one at the end for me, which was a pleasant surprise, a result that we don't see very frequently, and that is the pretty much full regeneration of a head of hair on a female. So this is a beautiful quote from Morse to understand really what we're looking at when it comes to disease labels from Dr. Morse, and that is, a disease is simply a name to the respective symptom or collection of symptoms that occurs when acids damage the cells of the body or set in motion an inflammatory response, and a symptom is experienced. Names of diseases may seem complex, but please understand that they are simply location, location, location. One must alkalinize the body to reverse the inflammation and return balance to the body. I just wanted to add one thing there. When he says location, what he means is, we often see labels associated with virtually the same problem, just in a different part of the body. So if you see inflammation in one part of the body, you might get a different name if it's in a different part of the body. And we separate the lot. And I think a cool quote that comes to mind is, when we zoom out, we can see the forest for the trees, opposed to having our view very, very closed in, and we don't see that there's a forest, it's very isolated. And I think that's a very simple way to, and if any of you like to take a photo of that, I saw someone did. Cool. So the confusion of diets, I did touch on this before, and this is where understanding chemistry, I don't know how many people took chemistry at school, but people can get very confused. I know at school, I could not stand chemistry at all. I was like, this is boring. There's no real application of understanding this in real life. And then when I started at Morse's school, working on its doctorate degree, I'm like, I got to learn this. This is the basis of literally all created matter on this planet, and that is essentially acid and base, or acid and alkaline. There's a spectrum at the bottom there. The lower end is pretty much 3 pH is sort of like Coca-Cola, and that's the pH of when cells start to die in the body. And then you'll also get the same if you go up the other end to like 12, 13, 14. And that's where we see like bleach, lye. So we go too extreme, like too unbalanced, too unbalanced on either side, it'll burn the living daylights out of your system. But what is very interesting is most things that humans consume are cooked, and cooking food removes water, and therefore the food has to become more acidic, because water alkalinizes. And we look at the state of the planet, we see that the state of the planet is around 70% water. The human body, when born, is around 80 or so. And very interesting how the human body, when we become elderly, we now see some people around 50 to 60%. So we see the dehydration of the human organism over the course of a lifetime of eating predominantly cooked foods. And that's just an interesting observation of that. And so generally speaking, the human body wants to needs to use chemistry anywhere from 4.5 to around 8. So that's 4.5 are things like certain slightly acidic hormones. So there's like estrogen, which is an acidic hormone. This is not to say acids are the devil or anything like this. This is just to show that there's a spectrum, and the human body, just like every other species, likes a specific range of chemistry to be coming in. And a good sort of thing to ask yourself is, how much of the food that I'm currently eating is raw? So this is a very cool thing you could do after this. Just write down, like, what am I eating that's raw? Not even necessarily fruit or herbs, but like raw food. And perhaps ask yourself, when I eat cooked food, how much water then do I drink? So something that's an interesting observation is maybe you drink a lot of water after you've eaten a meal that's cooked. I know from my experience eating predominantly raw foods now, you don't really drink water very often unless you do crazy exertion of exercise. And that's due to the fact that there's fiber-bound water within the food already constructed at a different chemistry makeup. It's no longer H2O. It's completely different. It's H3O2. And that's a cool thing to study in and of itself as well, to look up what H3O2 is in terms of the molecules and how that interacts differently. But I don't want to get into that because I don't really see it as being important. So the blood sits at around 7.5, and we know, I think most people know, that if the blood becomes too acidic, yeah, you're pretty much dead. And the body can't fluctuate. So the body has, that blood can't fluctuate, sorry. So the body has to keep the blood alkaline. So if we're consuming more dehydrating foods, then the body has to use chemistry to make sure the blood stays at that 7.5. And something that I'll get into in a moment and is to go on to why simple sugar in fruit and also sugars in vegetables, because vegetables contain sugar. A lot of people don't realize that. Glucose is a form of sugar, and that's predominantly of what vegetables are made of. Why these two fuels are the predominant constituent that we should be consuming. And I'll give some clinical examples from Dr. Morse of why this is so in their raw food form, not cooked form. And a good thing to understand is protein is made up of amino acid chains, and it's in the word acid. That's why I put it in capitals. They're high in acids, which are made out of nitrogen molecules, whereas carbon, which is the highest constituent in fruits and vegetables, is formed from sugar. So just think sort of sugar equals carbon in its natural form, and amino acids is nitrogen. And I don't know if any of you know, but they're trying to make nitrogen cars at the moment, and they're failing miserably because nitrogen is not a fuel source. They're killing people around these vehicles. They are trying so desperately to use nitrogen as a fuel source, and they can't figure out why. And there's Dr. Morse over there saying, well, you're using a fuel source that nowhere in nature is used. Trees, when you burn wood, that burns off carbon molecules. So it's not just fruit. The trees are made of carbon molecules. They all have a balance of nitrogen and carbon. But it's very interesting that when you go and choose just predominantly nitrogen, you can, you suffocate people. So I hope this is starting to pull confusion out of, thinking, oh, well, I need this diet, I need that diet, I need that diet, I need this diet. But when we pull back and we look at chemistry, then we can have a better understanding of knowing, okay, well, if I have more acid coming into my body is going to be more stressed out, it's going to struggle more, there's going to be less hydration, and my body's more water, so perhaps I need more water so I can keep my body moving efficiently. And I'll show you an example soon of this main eliminative system that requires high water foods and requires an element called astringents, which is a very powerful element in food that isn't present in the majority of foods that people consume. I touched on this before, and I just wanted to bring it to the surface again because acid and base is dualistic, acid and alkaline. But we see this repetition of duality. We see the mind is dualistic, the mind is in creation, the mind doesn't come from pure consciousness or God or Krishna, whatever you want to call that. We see masculine, feminine. We know generally if you see someone very masculine, they're often going to be more aggressive. Someone more feminine is much more loving. And we see this balance. We need our masculine, we need our feminine. We need this homeostatic push and pull happening. And it's everywhere, night, day, positive, negative, so in magnetics. So this law is what Dr. Morse calls it, and even in physics they call these laws. These are laws of nature. They are unchanging. Like fire will always burn the same way acids will always burn, alkalis will always cool. And if you have too extreme of that, then this is where homeostasis is no longer found. I thought it was a very important thing to touch on there. So understanding now the water component of food, not cooking the food. There's another element I missed, and that is eating in simplicity. Like how many of you, I spent years going, I need 15 different things in my meal to get everything I need. I need absolutely everything coming in. Otherwise, I don't get enough. And it's funny because now, when I began at Morse's school, it was like, always observe. What other species is eating 15 different things at lunch, or eating 3 times a day, or cooking their food and adding this, that, and the other. And you look at a cow, I watch a lot of the cows here, and you see the babies, other than the first period of life when they're consuming the milk, they literally consume grass from birth to death. It doesn't change. The only time that changes is if they begin to get unwell. And I had a chat with Tulse here. He was here a while ago, and he's watched cows go and eat herbs, not grass, when they're unwell. And this points again in that direction of there's an innate connection with nature that animals have, that they know they can turn to herbs. And this is why I'll get into soon, why herbs are so powerful and how they've been gifted to us by creation, by consciousness through creation to help us, and how that these aren't treatment modalities. These are literally little helpers, if you will. Morse will call them like the highest angels of creation. Like they're literally always here, ready to help it, like little parts of your body. It's crazy how those principles from the herbal go to a respective organ or gland. It's like it's made for it, like it's attracted to it. So that's a very interesting thing. And so getting your health back pretty much is understanding this body, this system in the body, and that is the lymphatic system. It's very interesting that this system isn't really talked about anymore. Perhaps it's to do with the fact that the pharmaceutical industry and the health industry makes a load of money off of the backs of us being unwell. And this is why Dr. Morse is not popular in modern medicine, so to speak. In saying that, there's a lot of medical doctors and surgeons that go to his school, and which has been amazing, because there's many of them that are wanting answers that haven't found it in their standard Western teaching. And a big part of that, which is missed out, which no one really hears about, is the lymphatic system. You know, we always hear about blood, but that's not the majority of the fluid in the system. It's the lymphatic capillaries. And this is the best image I could find on Google, where they've zoomed in on the thumb, and that's quite literally, those little veins are literally just lymphatic vessels. And the lymphatic system has lymph nodes everywhere. There's around 800 lymph nodes in the body, and the body uses the lymphatic fluid to remove waste. Think of the lymphatic system as a sewer system. It's like a dump truck system. It's like, imagine if we didn't have the council coming and picking up the rubbish from all the volunteers being here. Being in housekeeping, we know what it's like when the bins get full, and we're like, yeah, it's stinky, it's overflowing, we need this out of here. This is what we've seen in the human body when that lymphatic system can't clean itself after the cells have been fed from the blood. So the blood is obviously vital, because the blood is pumped by the heart, it feeds all the cells. But these little cells are just like little people. They eat and eliminate waste. So they take what they need and they get rid of what they don't. And if you have an excess of waste, the body automatically pushes it into the lymph. So what we've seen is the lymph system is getting very overwhelmed. It's getting very full. And this is why we start to see states of what they may call edema, which is where the body pulls in water. We know water is the universal natural solvent, and it also, when paired with minerals, is an immense hydrator. So the body will pull in lymph fluid, fat, water, wherever it can if there's too much attack, if you will, or damaging from acid-waste cells that the body wants to get rid of. It just doesn't have the ability to do so. And that purely is the fact that there's not enough water available in the system for the body to achieve that elimination. So there's a big difference between cellular hydration and just, I'm thirsty, give me a drink. If you're truly cellularly hydrated, this is Dr. Morse's view, and I've experienced this and continue to experience it, is if you're cellularly hydrated, you won't ever be like ravenously thirsty. If you ever had that thirst when you eat like a big salty meal or something very complex, and you're like, man, I'm so full, but I could smash just like this cold glass of water, like 700 ml or something. And this is the body screaming at you, give me water, give me water. You've given me all this cooked food. I've got very little energetic chemistry to work with. There's a lot of acid involvement, and it's using everything it can to start trying to move out that waste. And yeah, so essentially, in summary, the blood feeds cells, the lymph removes it, but then how does it remove it out of the body? Like when we consume food, we know that we like do a poo. That's the physical waste of that. But then we have the urine, which is essentially the eliminative pathway of the kidneys, of the lymphatic system, which is through the kidneys. And the skin also is a component of this too. This is why we see skin issues in individuals. I used to have chronic psoriasis. I'd scratch my hair and would have a ski field to play on. You know what I mean? Like that much powder. There's a photo on my partner's phone where she was like getting it off my scalp. My scalp was red and white. It's like red and white. You got the acid of coming out the skin and excreting this waste, but you have the acid burning the skin. And anyone that has had children knows that if you leave a nappy on too long, you can get like nappy rash. And that is literally the acid waste through the urine and the feces sitting and still touching the bottom of the child. And that is because it's the acid component. The body's getting rid of that. It doesn't want that touching the skin anymore. And so the kidneys are absolutely vital. This is drilled into us time and time again. It's a constant reminder, working with Morse and his team, of your clients filtering through their kidneys. And I'll explain to you what that means, what that looks like. Because we know when we go to the toilet and we pass stool that we're eliminating the food we are consuming, the physical food. But that cellular waste, like what I was talking about before, where the blood feeds the cells and the cells get rid of that waste, that isn't really functioning too well. And so a good way to test this is if you get like a mason jar, and first thing in the morning, it sounds a bit weird, but it's really cool once you start to see the kidneys filter, is you want to urinate in a jar and you want to put it up to the light and look. It shouldn't be crystal clear. If it's crystal clear, Morse will say you're in like deep doo-doo, like there's things not going on well for you. And typically people that have chronic conditions, their kidneys aren't really filtering at all. So everything's backing up in the system. He uses the analogy of, imagine if your sewer system's full at home and you flush the toilet and it's clogged and it backs up and it overflows. Anyone that's had that happen to them knows it's not fun. And you got to get old plumber mate to come out and fix it. And so when we see the filtration, we know that even if it's a little bit, even if it's just a speckle of powder, like what looks like powder or snow, you might see stringy looking things, which is mucus. You may see really thick, white, fine powder. It can come in any sort of form. It's always going to be white or a whitish yellow. We don't really focus on the color of the urine being as important. It's because often you can get chemical release through the urine as well that changes the color of the urine. Like if you've taken a lot of pharmaceuticals, recreational drugs, even certain foods change the color of your urine. It's really important to focus on, am I seeing filtration? And this is something that just came to me I wanted to point out too, is the human body is mostly dualistic. We have 2 kidneys, 2 sets of eyes, 2 hands. The only thing that's not is the heart, the liver, the gallbladder, and the digestive system runs in a circular motion, like around, down, and out of the body. And how we have 1 kidney each side of the body to filter each side of the body, each side of the brain. Really, we're actually trying to filter the brain and keep the brain healthy, because an endocrinologist I heard of recently was saying that about 70% of lymph nodes are above the neck, which is pretty cool. It shows that whoever created the human body, or any animal really, knows how important brain function is, that we need all these lymph nodes to filter and keep this area functioning, because this is where our thoughts come through, this is where our perception comes through, and then everything else has a very smooth, well made up physical machine that we are just seeing the result of not looking after that in the manner that nature has intended for us to use and to look after in. And this is where the fruits and the herbs come in. So I mentioned before, there's the aspect called astringents. And astringents are pretty much, as far as I know, only found in fruits. I believe they're also a component in herbs too, which technically herbs are a form of vegetable, but funnily enough, typical vegetables don't really have astringents in them. And what this is a property that moves lymph fluid. It pulls at the lymph system. And this is why fruits are so critical. When you're younger, you have more cellular strength. Even people that have been in wheelchairs for years can get out and walk. And this is understanding how powerful herbs are, how these herbs will literally rebuild neurological pathways of the human body. They'll literally assist your body in doing that itself. It's like you're not doing anything. You're allowing your body to do the work for you. It's you're putting in the ingredients so that it can achieve that. And another interesting case is another wheelchair case that Morse had, of when he had her on the fruits, and this is back in the 70s, I believe, and she was getting all this movement back. She didn't need assistance anymore. She could like get herself out of the chair. She was in a walking frame. It was slowly re-strengthening the body. And at that time, Morse didn't really understand to the level at how powerful fruits were. And he was like, that's it. I'm going to put some muscle on you. You're too thin. I'm going to get you on vegetables. 2 days later, he gets a call from the husband, and he says, my wife's not speaking now, and she's back in a wheelchair and can't move. And this is that power of astringents and neurological ability of fruits. And what we actually see in terms of energetics is fruits are very, very high at an electromagnetic level, even to this day, which is remarkable. I often wonder, like, what would the original fruit been like before it was modified? Even now, with the modifications we see, we can still get incredible healing. I wonder if maybe we could get people out of wheelchairs in a few weeks instead of months to a year or so. This is the difference maybe we would see. Who knows? But the power of the herbs is so critical. I've seen people, and more so seen thousands of people not use herbs and then go to the herbs, and the assistance that your body gets is night and day difference. Until you experience the filling of herbs as being foods and medicines, if you will, for you, not something you take forever. These aren't things you take forever. They're taken periodically, generally for up to half a year. I always use the analogy of like a math tutor. Like imagine you have a cell, you have a gland in your body, it's lost its ability to function. The math tutor, the herbs, comes in, starts showing you how to do that equation, relearn that ability. Once you've learned that ability, you don't need the tutor anymore. It's like, I'm done, thank you very much for your service. And that's essentially what happens with the herbs, is your body will reject them when they don't need them. Like your body could oftentimes will throw the herbs up. If you take them, you'll just vomit them up. The body's like, no thanks. Or you'll feel very odd. You feel like, this is not good for me. This isn't helping me. And you can tell that by looking at the iris of an individual, which I won't really get into, but I'll touch on it soon. But there is a process of cleaning the body, and this is very important of, okay, I have the hydration, I have fruits and vegetables. You don't have to just do fruit, by the way. You can do fruits, vegetables, and herbs, and you can even add some cooked foods. There's ways around utilizing these natural principles of nature without being stressed out about, oh my God, I only have to eat this, I'm going to struggle, I love these other things. You can do like salad and steamed veggies with a big green salad. Like fruit meals should be a great focus of yours. But then what's going to happen is your body starts a process of detoxification. It's quite a tainted word nowadays. You always hear that this detox or that detox, but really that's a word of nature. Nature naturally does that. We've seen areas that get poisoned by, let's say, someone oversprays an area, or there's an area trashed. We see nature will like try to push the stuff out. You see roads crack as like if you see an untamed road, it'll crack open, or like put grass over it. You see dirt start to come over. Nature's trying to like move that away and get nature back to its natural state. And the human body will use eliminative channels to remove waste out of the system. And you'll see that in your stools. You'll get probably a cold and flu symptom as the body drains. When you get any sort of fluid out of your nose, that's literally lymph fluid, that sticky stuff that we call snot. That's literally just snot, which is this what we call that part of the lymph fluid out of that part of your body. Your body will use any hole. It'll use your ears, your eyes, stuff when you get stuff in the morning in your eyes, if anyone gets that. If you get white on your tongue upon wakening, we know through Ayurveda how powerful oil pulling is and cleaning the tongue, keeping your mouth clean. A big thing people that jump on all raw and high fruits and herbs fail to do time and time again is to not clean their mouth. And they see the erosion of the teeth and they go, oh, the fruits and the herbs did that to me. And you go, no, your body is removing through this orifice here and you're not keeping that area clean, because the human body shouldn't be this filthy. And there's a process of cleaning happening. Almost imagine like a house renovation. You have to do all this work first, strip out the old broken boards, get rid of all this waste. But only then after can I start repairing deep weaknesses. And this is where when people get out of wheelchairs, people get rid of tumors, whatever it is, fix up skin conditions, digestive issues. This is where that deep healing happens, is after or towards the end of that detoxification process. So when you typically see cold and flu symptoms, fevers, maybe some headaches at the beginning, maybe diarrhea even at some points, that self-corrects quite quickly. You may get this sort of happening throughout the process of where you feel amazing, and then maybe every 7 days you might have a little dip. And of course, there's herbs you can use to help support the organs and glands of your body to help them function at the best ability possible. And it's Morse's view and opinion that herbs increase the body's ability to heal around 3 times compared to using just the fruits and the raw foods alone. And a good news for anyone that's got great genes, and you can tell the gene strength of an individual, is through the eyes. So if you've got strong genes, you probably could forgo herbs altogether. They can be quite pricey when you start buying them. And you can, thanks to modern science, we have pretty much got the most in-depth chart of iridology, where you can just do a map of the eye and you can see it's just a physical, Morse calls it like a radiation-free CAT scan. He's like, you don't have to do anything, you see everything in the body. And what we love doing is knowing nothing about the client at all, literally know nothing, especially skeptics, and just give me your eye and I'll have a look. And I can't say you had a car crash, you had this, you had that, but I can say there's an area weak in your upper right shoulder that's really chronic. I don't know what happened to you. And the person might go, oh yeah, I had a skiing accident 15 years ago, completely shattered my shoulder and it's never been the same. Or my knee, or your really tight neck, maybe you get migraines. Oh yeah, I always get migraines because my neck is constantly stiff on the right side. It's always on each side. You've got the left and the right. And so the eye reflects a live, essentially it's a live reading, if you will, of what's going on in the body right now. So anyone that may have met raw foodists or fruitarian people even talk often about the eye changing color. The eye doesn't actually change color. What does change is your lymphatic system cleans up. So the lymphatic system should be invisible in the eye. So when you start to see a blue eye with more yellow and orange, this is where you get the combination of yellow and blue forms green. This is where we see a green eye. Or even beyond that, orange goes to, or yellow goes to brown. This is where we can see a blue eye looks brown. This is crazy. And seeing the before and after photos of clients and people working through myself and Morse and seeing more blue come through or more of the natural brown come through, we then begin to see the body's now it's eliminating. And a good thing you can do is ask your parents, if they're still around, of, hey, what were the color of my eyes when I was born and what are they now? And you'll likely see they're a different color. And this is why this modality, not only is it so easy to learn, children can learn iridology. Like there's kids that learn this at Morse's school if they just do the iridology coursework without doing the practitioner work, because you're literally just remembering location, and you can use a health form in conjunction with that, because something that a lot of people like to do is they like to keep everything very rigid. And yes, there's these areas, like the neck, the ear, the lower body at the bottom, the back, either side, is we don't use overlays, which is like a grid, because you might be someone that's had surgery in an area and that organ or gland is now in a slightly different spot. It may be up towards 11 instead of 10 and a half, or it may be down below 3 o'clock instead of bang on at 3. So there's things like this that are really important to know. And this is just the beauty of iridology that was discovered by a medical doctor, in a Hungarian medical doctor, I think 2 centuries ago. And over the years, it's been expounded upon. And Dr. Bernard Jensen was a good friend of Dr. Morse's when he was around. And he pretty much has got the most refined edition that every lymphatics, every iridology school that I know of, naturopathy schools that use this, will use Bernard Jensen's charts, because they really are just that great. And this is a testimonial of the client I was talking about before. I have a video testimonial on my YouTube, actually, showing better on that side of her body, where she pulled her hair up and there's just like no hair here. And 6 months later, she really went all in. She was very emotionally, she was really willing to allow emotions to move through her. And that's a big thing that people struggle with, is not only do we have physical things stored in our body, but as they become eliminated, the emotional body starts to realign itself. And this is where we see maybe crying, fear, anxiety. Anyone that's done meditation courses or practices meditation knows what this discomfort feels like. And that's often heightened as the body eliminates, because all these energetic bodies intertwine with the physical body. And we see that with like chakra points are in the same spots as the glands. There's some very interesting overlaps from the non-physical and the physical elements from other areas of wisdom that we have in our world. And yeah, and 6 months later, she's got a full head of hair, less gray hair, which is quite cool. But more the fact that she can actually have like hair now, and doesn't wear a wig. You can obviously see her face isn't really puffy anymore. She does have makeup in that photo. It's really hard to get her not to wear makeup, but she that was like one of the best shots I could get. She loves these beauty things, but you can see how much slimmer her face is. And best of all, her kidneys are filtering. She's got her hair back. She can live her life. She doesn't wake up feeling like she's been hit up the head by a piece of wood. These kind of things are gone in the space of 6 months. And now she's helping women like with emotional things and things like that, which is she can live her full life as well. And now she observes like fruit in the morning, salad and cooked vegetables at lunch, because vegetables are very neutral. They're very even food. There's no immense power in terms of I'm gonna slam your lymphatic system, and there's nothing in them that's just gonna make your body worse. So this is why understanding that the fruits for a period of time in conjunction with herbs are essential if you want to get that lymphatic system moving, get something cleaned up, and then you can balance out with whatever you see fit beyond the point of the healing that you've gone through. And yeah, so I had this quote here from Morse: "If acids win, you lose." It's very true, and it's a short and sweet one that I think it's good to end with. And there's some cool little proverbs that Morse has devised over the years. And I have a podcast that I run with Sam, my brother, that we've been a bit slack with recently, but we'll get more on top of that. And I've got a website, and I made a free ebook of as much of my coursework as possible in a simplistic fashion that you can get that's PDF, so people can help themselves. And I call myself like a mini Morse in a way, because he started off in a van. He sold his van to get herbs. He's been bankrupt like 4 times because he just wants to help people. And he's 75 now almost, and he's still going strong, doing his thing, getting people out of wheelchairs, getting tumors out of the body, getting people's eyesight back, repairing like these, we see issues from like kids, the children have it the hardest, and really cleaning up really anyone if the human body, if that individual has the ability to do it at that point. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming to my talk, and I've got time for Q&A as well for up to 45 minutes if you want to ask anything. And yeah, thanks for coming.